Hello friends, in this video I'm going to be sharing 6 signs that your friend might be in an abusive relationship. Specifically narcissistic abuse, emotional, psychological abuse, that kind of thing. The symptoms show up in very strange and sometimes subtle, not so subtle ways. It can be a little bit hard to catch. A lot of times when people are going through this, they start to act really differently. They start to show and exhibit some symptoms that might not look like um, the symptoms of somebody experiencing abuse. I felt it important to share this video because a lot of times people who are undergoing this kind of abuse have a hard time recognizing it themselves, and when they are able to finally recognize it, it's very hard for their friends to see what's going on. And this is a time when someone who has endured this kind of thing actually really needs somebody to believe them. But the way that it expresses itself through the person who's experienced it is very odd. It's very strange. However, it is across the board. Like if you talk to any survivors of narcissistic abuse, and for the most part, they'll be like, yeah, that was going on. And even recently, I've had a couple of friends come to me and say that they were sorry that they didn't quite get it, and now that they've gone through something like that themselves, which is very unfortunate. They understand now. So that inspired me to make this video. So if you have a friend who's claiming to be enduring something like this, some sort of narcissistic or psychological abuse, I want you to be able to see what might be happening. And also, if you are going through this and you need something to share your friends, some sort of validation, this is for you. Okay, so the first sign that your friend might be in an abusive relationship is that they either won't talk about it at all, or they will talk incessantly about it. So there's often a couple of ways that we respond to this kind of thing, which is either a complete freeze response. Sometimes the abuse is so much we just freeze up and don't know what to do, and then we go into isolation mode because it's safer. So if your friend won't talk about the relationship or gives very little information or cues about it, that might be something to note. And also if they are just honestly getting really annoying talking about it so much. And what they're going through, and you're feeling a little bit like, whoa, this is a lot, are you sure? That might be something to look at too and listen more deeply, because when someone is going through that kind of abuse, they're constantly getting gaslit and validated by the person in their life that's doing this. And so what that does to the brain is it causes a lot of confusion. So the person's having an experience of this intensity coming towards them, and then that person is telling them that they're crazy, or blaming it on them. And so that person's mind gets stuck in these loops of like, what am I the problem? What am I doing wrong? Am I actually being abused? I don't know. And so will probably continue to try to talk it out with their friends, to try to make sense of it all. So if you have a homie who's going on and on and on and on about this particular relationship and what's going on, and they can't see up from down in it, then that's a good thing to look at. The second sign that your friend might be in an abusive relationship is they have become increasingly negative and ill-mannered. So when we are in these kinds of relationships, personality changes are very common. One can only withstand, the consistent bombardment of certain behaviors over time, and it will start to break a person down. So they will be less pleasant to be around. They'll be a little bit more despondent or agitated, maybe a little bit aggressive, nitpicky. If your friend is acting out of character in these ways, and they're disposition is changing into more aggressive. They might even be going into some sort of like addictive behaviors too. Like if they start drinking or, doing other things that might be helping them to dissociate, that's something to take note on. Since psychological abuse affects the brain and the nervous system in a myriad of harmful ways, it's very common for personality changes to follow. The third sign is that they lose their zest for life, and they might be losing interest in the activities and the hobbies that they once loved and enjoyed. They become depressed. Depression is a side effect of being consistently beaten down emotionally and manipulated, gaslit, invalidated, devalued, and controlled. They often lose their sense of self-worth, and this causes a sense of deflation and despair. So if your friend has fallen into a depressed state and they're just not the lively person that they once were, this could be an indicator of an abusive relationship, unfortunately. The fourth sign that your friend is in an abusive relationship is that they constantly question themselves and become self-deprecating. So this could be a sign that their abuser's voice has been internalized into their own mind. So narcissistic abuse is very strange in that it's subtle at first, right? We all know there's this love bombing phase, and that gets the person to open up and really trust and believe in this new person in their life. But after a while, the dialogue changes, and the narcissistic person starts, saying these little negative things, and then those things get bigger, and then they'll repeatedly do this over and over again, so that person's self-concept gets broken down over time and by repetition. And so what happens at the end of this kind of relationship is that that person has internalized the narcissist's voice in their own mind, and they act in accordance to it. So there's a lot of self-doubt and a lot of self-deprecation. There's a lot of self-questioning because, know or have heard the term gaslighting. Like anytime that person expresses their experience, the narcissistic person usually tells them that that's not the case, that they're crazy, convince them that they have some sort of reality distortion disorder. So if your friend is generally seeming confused and, is like self-deprecating verbally, can't seem to tell what's up from down, that is a huge sign that someone is messing with them. Abusers cause their victims to doubt themselves and their reality, and also to dislike themselves. The fifth sign that your friend might be in an abusive relationship is that they start to act a little crazy. They become emotionally unstable. Abuse can drive a person crazy, especially narcissistic abuse. So these people only abuse one person at a time, and they act really nice around everybody else. And that alone can feel very disorienting and make a person feel a little nuts. So not only does the victim doubt their reality due to gaslighting, they doubt it by watching this person behave in opposite ways to other people. So that can be extremely disorienting to see that level of duplicity in someone's behavior. And then that also causes the victim to believe that they are the problem, because they're not seeing that happen to anybody else, and therefore their friends don't believe that it's happening because they don't see it happening to anybody else. They don't see what's going on behind closed doors. On top of that, the abusive person is telling the victim that they are the problem. So it's a multi-layered crazy-making machine. And the brain chemicals that get released during this kind of very confusing and disorienting experience, where you're seeing one thing and then the other, and like your friend is getting the Jekyll Hyde experience, that they're getting this one really lovely version of a person, and then they're also getting this extremely different version of that person. So what ends up happening in the brain and the nervous system, and as a result of all of this back and forth and not being able to tell what's up from down, is incredibly destabilizing and causes a lot of distress. So yeah, your friend is going to act a little bit nuts. The sixth sign that your friend might be in an abusive relationship is that they might literally feel like fear or negativity. Like when you're around them, that is their vibe. It's just off. Like they don't feel good to be around anymore. Your friend might be harder to hang out with because they're not light and positive and fun or funny anymore. Maybe not even a fraction of the time that they used to be. And this can be really off putting. So if you're having a harder time being around your friend because their vibe just sucks, honestly, that's actually a time to lean in, even though your natural impulse is going to want to be to pull away from them because your friend is in a lot of pain. And when someone's in a lot of pain and in a lot of fear, they exude that. They have stress chemicals running through their body, high levels of cortisol and adrenaline. And, those hormones, you're actually going to be able to smell them. And subconsciously, you're going to be able to pick it up. Some people have like wolf noses and they can track that. But, you're going to feel it. Like they're going to vibe you out. They're just going to feel weird. And your natural instinct is going to feel a little bit repulsed by that. And this is really hard when your friend is going through something like that because they need you more than ever in these moments. So if you're noticing yourself like pulling away because they're just not, they're not awesome to be around in this moment, feel into that. Check in with them because they might be going through something that, is having them feeling that way. Being around a person in pain causes discomfort for us. We are naturally wired to avoid pain. So if your friend feels off, then something might be going on that you don't see yet. And your friend might not even be able to see the situation clearly themselves, especially if their lives are deeply intertwined with this person. It's very hard to admit to ourselves when someone that we love is being abusive to us. It's so psychologically distressing to even consider that something like that is going on when it's someone that we love and that we've trusted and that we've cared about for so long. Like the last thing we want to believe is that this person is abusing us. So we'll often make a lot of excuses, and your friend is probably doing that. Cognitive dissonance is a huge key player here. So if these things are going on, basically someone has caused your friend to believe terrible things about themselves. So if you see these signs, keep an eye on your friend and, consistently, gently ask them what's going on. Pay attention to cues. Offer help if you can. More than anything, just let them know you're there for them. And if they do choose to speak to you about it, please be open-minded and listen to them. They need you now more than you know. All right, I hope this was helpful. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.